Do we have an intro? I don't know. Should we
That
just
is
usually,
the intro.
or we just start talking, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right.
Okay.
So, um, I saw something on one of them social media jugglers this week. Well, actually today, and I wrote this earlier on. Let me just mute everything so that I'm doing this bit professionally. I always forget. Um, the title. Then something happened, and we decided to write our own laws. Right? How many ants try and save the world? The fact that we believe we are in some position to do so is extremely anthropocentric. We have no more power to destroy the world than we do to save it. We can, however, save the world as a habitat for humans. And that's all we mean when we really say save the world, right? It seems to be synonymous. Ants will continue, bacteria, macrophages, viruses, flies, fungi, mosquitoes, some birds, some mammals, some fish, some fauna, some reptiles, and some others too. And you know why? Because they all collectively follow the rules of life. Even we have a word, we even have a word for all of these forms of lives and their rules of life, and we call them the environment. We are so disconnected from the rest of the community of life on this earth. And by we, who am I speaking to? Us, not humans, just the culture of humanity, this culture of humanity. Not all of humanity, just us. It's not about communism or anti-communism or Marx or Keynes or Milton or Malthus or Hegel nor Kierkegaard. All these things that I just mentioned and still are, were and still are an innovation to diminish the damage and trauma caused by previous innovation and so forth. There are some revolutions in history where this happened naturally and organically, like the Industrial Revolution. There was never a mandate. There was never any government program to make the revolution great again. It just happened because people understood that they could take an idea, innovate upon it, and either create a product and sell from the ground up or embellish with some advancement, some already like product already available, benefiting the community, right? Something that's already been sold and purchased, but this person made it better. How we sell, where we sell, why we sell, and for how much we sell, this could be and has thus been hitherto debated for years. But what has never really been debated? What do you never hear of? The totalitarian agriculture we innovated some 12,000 years ago. Then some 200 years ago, we as a culture attempted to, and still are attempting to, replace ecology with economy. The underlying factor of both, albeit at very different temperaments, is subsistence, like food. The sun provides a source of energy for the whole community of life on this wet rock. And for about 200,000 years, we lived in accordance with the rules of life and the rest of this community of life. We've been human for about 3 million years, and I'm talking about Homo sapien sapien, right? You and I, we've been the same genetic, biological, mentally capable entity for 200,000 years. And it worked. It worked very well for 200,000 years. We were successful at it. We survived for that long as a member of the community of life, subject to the laws of the rules of life. And then something happened around 12,000 years ago. We decided that we will write our own laws. We don't really know much beyond the previous 7,000 years. We don't even really understand the last 2,000 years. And given the last 2 months, are we really going to continue enacting a story of Abrahamic totalitarian agriculture we innovated some 12,000 years ago, coupled with an unnatural and inorganic 200-year-old imperialist anthropocentric economic worldview? This is very strange. So when we're talking about how is it that we've never heard that this color thing we were talking about before has come into play, we have no idea how to be humans on this earth, because we think we should be humans on this earth based on this idea started 12,000 years ago, and this idea that we've mixed it in with 200 years ago, and this is the GMO of our culture. And because it's innovation, and because it's science, and because it's whatever it is, it's always going to be good. And it's always, well, that's not how ecology works. Sometimes the change, the innovation, the mutation, the advancement, whatever, ceases you to exist. Do you know what I mean? Like it completely cuts you out. It unroots you. Everyone obviously knows how important plants are for the earth. But at one point in time, there were no plants. The only living things on earth in regards to what could be considered, and even they're not fauna, were mushrooms. There were so many mushrooms, and mushrooms like tree-sized mushrooms or fungi, whatever, that they created the oxygen required for, they created the carbon dioxide required for plants to actually photosynthesize. In regards to plants, plants started in the sea, and before they were green, they were purple. All plants initially were purple. And then due to the rise of a chemical, like it was just I can't remember this bit now. I read this years ago. All plants were purple, and there was a change in the chemical makeup of the sea due to the number of this this growing purple fauna underground, that it helped a bacteria that would not survive otherwise survive. This bacteria killed off, eventually, due to its critical mass and the numbers involved, grew to such an amount that it killed off all of the green, purple plants, and then plants became green. All the ones that survived were the green ones. So now we have green plants. But that's millions of years, blood. We're talking about, you know, and you know what? The question was like, so I wrote this in response to something. And the question was, if we really want to fight communists, we need to start this at home, right? So I wrote this, and then the response was, I don't really understand if you're against liberalists or Marxists. That was the response to this. So like, that person who wrote that has a perspective of 120 years on life. So he thinks that how I should be, no, I'm not going to put words into his mouth, but he's trying to understand me from 180 years, not even 200, 180 years of a horse's view about how to be human, how to be a dad, how to be a son, how to be an X, how to be a Y. Even if you're not in that that framework that he's got, or right, you're still in some other framework. And I guarantee you, if it's not 180 years, it's about 200 years, and then 220. But we just don't know. We do not, for the life of us, know. And I don't think we're supposed to. I don't think we're supposed to. It doesn't work like that. I think the idea that, you know, the whole race thing, the whole color thing, has to be kind of disassociated from race. And it is, right? You know, if you're French, you're a different race. If you're English, you're a different race. But what does that mean? Are you? Yeah, no, yeah. But then if you're from, you know, Malawi, and your brethren's from Zimbabwe, are you a different race? The strange thing is, I don't think there's any different. But if there's no difference between the guy from Malawi and the guy from Zimbabwe and the guy from, you know, Stratford and the guy from Liverpool, then what's the difference between the guy from Malawi and the guy from Liverpool? Initially, visually, their skin color, but that really has nothing to do with what's that got to do with this made up thing called a race? Like, I don't know. I know we spoke about this before, but what do you think about race?
What do I think about race?
Yeah, because for you, it's much more different. Yeah. For you, it's much different than it is for me. Because everyone knows where you're from, blood. Do you know what I mean? Do you know how I explain myself? They're like, where are you from? I'm like, well, my mom's from Chechnya and my dad's from 2 mountains to the left. Because nobody knows my cop. Nobody, you know, maybe if they're into winter sports, they know Sochi.
I actually holidayed there last year. It's a very nice place.
There you go. Yeah, you're a cultured man.
That's not true. I don't even know where that is. 2 mountains to the left, so I could be anywhere. The north, the west, the south.
Yeah. But you say English,
everybody
Jamaican.
knows where you're from. I don't say English, actually.
You don't say English?
I don't say English. It's quite a paradox, right? In that technically, geographically, I was born in England, right? Actually, I say that I was born in London at home. I wasn't even born in a hospital. I don't say English because I don't know what it means or feels to be English. but I do know that there seems to be some difference with some people, English people, of what it means to be English. So I don't say I'm English. I say my dad's English, but I don't say I'm English. I don't know what that means to be English. Like, I don't know what that feels like. So on the safe side, I say British because that seems to be somehow acceptable and somewhat comfortable, but never English. It's interesting, and what is also interesting is like your question there. What does race mean to me? More often than not, when introducing myself, not introducing myself, I suppose, but in introductory terms or settings, not always, but sometimes, the racing comes into it. You find yourself saying, I'm mixed race, right? So my dad's English, my mum is Jamaican. You make of that what you will.
Right.
I am British, right?
Yeah.
Like it's why is it important? I don't know if it is, but it somehow seems to be, right? Is it important to me? No, I'm Dan. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to work out what that means, right? Let alone and the other attributes, as you said. But I don't really know, but I know that.
Can you be Nan? Nan, Yeah, you be mother. No, can you be Dan and not be mixed race? Like, because all right. So I jumped the gun. So I don't actually say Chechnya too because because of Google. When they say, where are you from? I say, I'm from the Caucasus. And they're like, sorry, you're from what? I say, I'm from the Caucasus. It's a mountainous region. I don't even have that notion of nationhood or race. So it's peculiar for me to say.
Maybe next time let's do a little bit of role play. We have met for the first time and you'd ask me, where are you from?
Hello. Great conference here. Where are you from, Daniel?
I'm from just north of the river. Maybe we can try that. Which river?
The north. Slomska. Which river you are from? Which river you swim as child? Which river?
So actually, I can pinpoint even further. So technically, geographically, just north of the Thames, but adjacent to the River Lee. So 2 rivers. Do you know something, right? Do you know something really interesting?
Hold on, you trying to tell me you're from Israel? What's going on now? What is this? You're from between 2 waters, yeah?
One of my
Israeli. You are from Israel.
One of my mates, right? She has this like uncanny ability to just someone who retains like random bits of information, right? She has this uncanny ability to tell me stuff about places that she's been. And I just find it really fascinating, right? I just like it is almost like hanging off the words, just like as you try to visualize, right? Quite a visual person. But something she told me, this is ages ago, and it kind of came not full circle, but it was really kind of, yeah. I found something that kind of like reaffirmed that. But she was telling me about Japanese surnames, right? The Japanese never used to have surnames. Up until like a specified part in history, probably European influence, but they never had surnames, right? So Japanese surnames now are names of things based on the landscape or things within nature, right? And I just thought it was amazing, right? I just thought it was fascinating. Like, it was just stuff that was around. If it was, I don't know if it was like a national consciousness that said that we will do that, or if it's just a coincidence. Probably the former. But I'm just going to read you out some common Japanese surnames. And I'm going to tell you what they mean, right?
All right.
So, and you tell me if you've heard of these names before, right? So first one, okay. Honda. You've heard of Honda, right?
Yeah.
Honda means, or possible meaning is main rice paddy. Right? Honda.
Go for it.
Right, let's go for another one.
Yeah.
How about Nakamura? You heard of Nakamura? Nakamura, right?
Yeah.
Nakamura means, possible meaning is inner forest.
Nakamura.
Right? Nakamura in a forest.
あなたは Nakamura ですか?
And I don't know.
Is that a forest? Is that a forest?
Well, I don't think I don't think Nakamura means forest. I think forest is different. But anyway,
Okay,
Sato,
okay.
right? Sato.
Sato. Yeah.
Uh, Helping Wisteria, right?
Helping
Helping Wisteria. Let me
listeria.
Wisteria, as in like I think it's like a type of tree or wisteria tree or something like that. One more.
What's
Uh,
Toshiba?
Toshiba. Uh,
Toshiba.
Toshiba's not in here. Um, but we've
I
got
own that domain, by the
we've
way.
got
If anyone in Japan wants to do something, or if you want to buy that domain from me, just let me know. I own Toshiba.net in Japanese.
what about this one? Yamamoto, right? Yamamoto is main mountain. Yamamoto.
Yamamoto, huh?
Uh,
Yame.
it just know, yeah. Like that is interesting. Sounds good. I like that. Like that sounds, and I guess in like maybe in like I don't know
So,
all of
so
European
I guess
culture.
hold on. So if you were from the the main rice paddy, like if you were from that vicinity, is that
Yeah,
how you got Honda?
that's how you would. Yeah, I imagine so. I need to look
Huh,
into it
huh.
more. Um, but yeah, it elicited two responses in me. First of all, the second response was like, that's really interesting and fascinating, right? That's a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think it's massively uncommon, right? You have people who used to live and work in the city of London whose surnames are named after their professions, like John Cooper, like for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
like
yeah.
made barrels. But that was the second thing. The second thing was that I thought that's fascinating, really interesting to look into. The first thing, I'm not going to tell you, but there were two things that made it interesting. But yeah. So, um, and I do wonder if I should just change my
Guys, just
name.
so that you know, he always does this. He always does this.
I
Sorry,
always
go
do
on.
this. It's because I realise that I'm having a conversation out loud. And I need to automatically filter these things out, so I don't say something that I don't want to be made public. Um, so, so I'm wondering if I should just change my name
Mm.
to Dan, north of the River Thames, right? So it's just like, where you from? It's in the name, right? You're from Dan. No, you idiot. North of the River Thames.
Do you
Or
know Dan from North of the River?
north of the river, north of the river. Which river? Thames. Maybe it could just be Dan Thames. But then it might be like, I don't know. I have to find some like old English word that means like under, above, over, nearby, whatever that might well be. But um, it might delay the race question to like further down because people would be perplexed with that bit. They'd be like, "Oh, this is weird. Do
Mm.
I ask follow-up questions? Do I not? Like, how did you get that name?" And then eventually be like, "Where are you from? I told you where I'm from. I'm north of the river. No, but where you really from?" It's just like, wow. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, 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 yeah.
right?
I say that to when I was in Turkey. I used to say that to people in Istanbul. So I'd be like, "Where are you from?" And they were like, "Istanbul." I was like, "Yeah, but where are you really from?" Because no one's from Istanbul. The only people from Istanbul are Armenians and Greeks, and they're not here anymore. So where are you from? But it's interesting. Like I think those lines, like, so what are we doing? We're almost zooming out, huh? Or zooming in. So there are extra layers here that, you know, so before you get to the borders of the country to make it a race, we're talking about rice paddies and the you know, the top of the mountain.
Mm.
So, and then we're talking about rivers. So if you're just from there and your land is for as far as you can see, do you know what I mean? So as far as you can see that way, and as far as you can see that way, that's home for you. Like the horizon is basically what you understand to be your territory or whatever.
Mm.
Then, and if you've got one river, or if you've got two rivers, like all of these things, when you zoom out and zoom out, I think there's no difference in that than zooming out of the years that we've been around. And
Maybe there should be a thing, right? When you get to a certain age, that you're allowed to choose your own name, and they can give you could be whatever you want, but there'll be a whole industry. I don't mean like e-commerce, but there'll be a whole industry of people creating new words, which basically means I am born between two rivers, like an English word to be born between two rivers, or be born between one river going one way, another river going the other way. But what I was going to ask actually is, I'm just trying to think about how
Isn't
many
that
times I've
River
been
Island?
asked. Potentially, I mean, it's almost a half Pangea, right?
Yeah.
In the age of Empire's map, it's like a half Pangea. Um, but I'm just thinking now, like, how many times have you been asked where you from and in what context? So I always find, in a professional context, in a work context, very rarely do people ask you where you're from. It's almost like there's an aversion for that, especially if it's a white person. Like, oh, are they going to think that I'm being like a racist or nosy by asking? But I find when it's like when you're socializing, then it might come up in conversation where it's a bit more relaxed and it's a bit, it's less thing.
I think that depends very much so on the nature of business and the environment, man.
Well, look, what I wanted to kind of like bring it round to is, I think the question that should be asked in exchange, if you could like, if it was a requirement as part of any company culture, not to ask where you're from, but to ask where you're going. Because I think that's far more interesting a question. You can also find out where people have been by asking where you're going. But if you used to ask where you're going, I don't know, that would be far more interesting question to ask people.
I agree.
People say, more often than not, people say, I don't know, right? And they might say that I don't know, but they do know. Or people who do know don't say where they think there is that they're going. But that would be far more interesting rather than trying to explain. Like, it would be nice. I mean, no, let me say that again.
Yeah,
It must be nice for someone to ask, where you from? England. England, right? As your knuckles drag along the ground, right? As you answer. It's nice and efficient. And sometimes I do like efficiencies, right? Just to say one word answer rather it's like, well, look, it's sort of like near over here and then take a few yards and you have to sort of stand on one leg and kind of look over down. Like like that makes it's interesting, but sometimes if you've only got like a certain number of characters or like you have limited time on the floor to which to speak, it can be a bit more difficult. But it must be nice. I mean, I'm not saying that I would want that. I would never. I don't think I'd ever start to say that I'm English and tell people I'm English. They'd be like, "What part of England are you from?" Well, clearly not the same part as you. But
yeah, but like this is. Do you not see a pattern here, though?
there's
Like,
always
all
a
right,
pattern
fine.
somewhere, right? Whether I
Yeah,
see it or not.
there's always a pattern, right? But they're asking where. I'm just stuck at the notion that these terms are quite loaded. Even the whole "save the
So
world."
loaded.
Right?
So
What is
loaded.
it? What does it mean? It means save the world as a habitat for us. Yeah, that's all it means. So when we say "where are you from," it's loaded for loads of reasons. I think me personally, like I don't know. So I never worked in America legally, but everybody asked me where I was from when I was out there. I was young too, and I looked really confusing to them. Colored eyes, kind of olive tanned Rasta with a British accent. So they were just confused. When I went to Turkey, it was the same kind of confusion, but then I spoke their language. And then I was in Kuwait and I worked there a tiny bit in Indonesia. Right? So there's nowhere that so even if I went back to Chechnya, all the Caucasus Mountains, yeah, apart from maybe physically kind of resembling the general populace, the rural populace, right? There's nowhere that I can say I'm from. It's not necessarily just because my mum and my dad are not from the same village, and it's not necessarily just because they're from two distinct cultures that have inhabited these mountainous regions for about 5,000, 6,000 years. It's just that as someone who grew up in London, if I don't know what river you're talking about when you say you're from north of the river, it doesn't actually mean anything to me. So the question would change then to what football team do you support? Or who do you follow on so and so? Or did you like
Actually,
all of
athletic,
these things? Yeah. all of these jazz is just ways for us to find some common ground. The question is, for what? If it's a business purpose, it's a business purpose. So
We're
in
not just
Turkey,
like
no, but this is important. In Turkey, you have a very different phenomenon than you do to England, let's say. Turkey is much more similar to Ireland in that respect for me, even though like Turkey has about 20 times the population of the country. Yeah, so it's not a numbers game per se, like I always kind of allude to. It's all also to do with how those numbers are spread out. Because in Turkey, people are generally like there's even a word for it. So like nationalism in Turkey is called milliyetçilik. Yeah, milliyetçilik is nationalism. But then there's a next one which is called cityism or boroughism, which is called memleketçilik, which is when it's not enough that you're from the same country and we have the same passport, we bow down to the same flag and all these jugglings. It's that you have to be now part of the area that I'm from for me to be able to, or so that I am not afraid this, feel like I need to run away, FFF, whatever. Like and none of this stuff, and it's not really about, do I really expect to hear about this on television when this is not really conversations that I hear on TV? No, I don't really expect it to hear on TV. But the only time, but it's whether or not we hear it on TV, like you said, there's patterns always. There's always patterns, whether we hear it or not. Whether we hear it on TV or not, we as people still experience this. And it's just interesting that this kind of stuff or this discussion or this dialogue is never, like, I've never seen a movie that's made this point. I've seen loads of movies that make the point about race and how race is, it shouldn't be used to divide, and how it can be used for good, and how it's not problematic, and how we can, all of this jazz. But there's never a movie that says, actually, this race thing is bullshit. And I just think it's for the same reason, right? Because the people making the movie are making the movie based on the same premise as to why you're going to be asking somebody where they're from in the first place. Yeah. If you ask this person where they're from and he says, I'm from Nepal, I don't know anything. I know it's like a very small country and they voted against.
It's almost just kind of like, unless you kind of knew, unless you would consider yourself a global citizen who has lived and worked and loved and lost it all over the world in different places. Yeah. Someone in your office to ask, oh, where are you from? And you answer Nepal, right? What's their response going to be? Oh, that's interesting. Is it? What's interesting about it? Tell me, please. I'm fascinated. So I was going to say, wouldn't it not be easier? Would it not be easier to just take out a Dulux coat of white primer and then kind of just like whitewash the whole thing and say I'm British. Where I'm from is a long story, and I will make it a long story. However, my citizenship is British.
I have a British passport.
Where are you from? I have a British passport. So I guess that it doesn't tell me about is your nationality. It's just the thing. It's race, nationality, citizenship. These are all things that are like interchangeable sometimes, depending on the context, depending on who you're talking to.
We don't even know how they came about.
I don't know if it's even worth. I don't know.
When was the first birth certificate? Like who decided that we were going to put numbers into people just to be able to follow them up? Just considering now that the government are sending letters to parents saying that on Monday, the army is going to come into their school and barcode their children. Just, so to say that let's blanket coat and just say we're British is the same argument that like a Europhile is going to say, I absolutely agree with you. Let's just forget the whole British thing and let's call all of ourselves Rifkans. Yeah. So this notion that I agree with you. So then let's just agree that Rivka is Rivka and whitewash the whole jugglings, and then let's just call the whole world the world.
I guess in line with like self-categorization theory, I could call a component of social psychology. If we were in a room with, okay, maybe let's not use us as an example because that would be too complicated, as we've already kind of established. But if you're in a room, if someone was in a room with 5 white English people and a black guy walks in, would they if they ask the black guy, "Oh, where are you from?" and the guy says, "I'm English. I was born in England," they'd be like, "Oh, what? Do you mean British?" Right? However, or if there was no black guy in that room, if it was just 5 white people, they say, "Where are you from?" They'll say, "Oh, Manchester or North London or wherever." Right? 5 English people. I forgot what the point I was going to make, so I'm trying to visualize now, like how many races going to chuck into this room, socially distance as well. Like,
no, I like that. So if you have 4 English people, by the term English, right?
White. Let's just say 5 white English people. Yeah.
Yeah, 5. No, let's just say we have 4 white English people, and then a 5th white English person comes in. Yeah. When they say, "Where are you from?" they're gonna give you that response: Manchester, Liverpool, London. If you've got 4 black British people and a 5th black British person walks in and they say, "Where are you from?" the conversation can go 2 ways.
It can go 2 ways.
He can say Nigeria, or he can say,
London, Manchester.
London, Manchester. Right now, I think it's a bit of a problem for us to automatically assume that the nationalistic instincts of the white English people will dissuade them from saying, "Well, my mum is German and my uncle, my I was about to say my mum and my uncle."
So my mum and my uncle are German, and this is a very complicated family tree. We don't talk about it at Christmas. Christmas is very difficult for us.
Yeah, so my mum is from so and so, and my dad is from so and so. They could say that, but because we're not privy to those conversations, we don't automatically think, yeah, it can go 2 ways. Because you find some West Indians who, one, don't like being called West Indian and don't like to be associated with Africa. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're racist. The conversation actually isn't about racism per se, but it's like you were saying earlier on in our convo about being misunderstood, right? If someone looks at me and they say, "Oh, okay, you're from the Caucasus Mountains," first off, yeah, like straight off the line, then this automatically ticks some boxes for me. It's not about good person, bad person. It's about, okay, one, he knows a bit about where I'm from. I don't need to explain myself as much. I wonder if I've made so much headway already without having to have had this normally 2-hour conversation with this dude. Could we become really good friends? Is that logical? No, not really, but it's biological. I think there's definitely like this association, trust, community. Are you part of my tribe? Can you cause me harm? Can I benefit from you?
It depends on the context and who's asking you, right? Because if the subtext is, "Oh, where are you from?" so I know where to place you, and by place you I mean categorize you. Then naturally, I would give a ridiculous answer to such a ridiculous question. Like, why does that matter? Why does it matter? Like, you know what? Right in the back of my mind right now, I have got an En Vogue song playing in the back of my mind. "Free Your Mind." Do you remember that one?
Free your mind.
Yeah, it's just playing in the back of "Free Your Mind." The rest will follow, right?
Something like that.
No, that wasn't. No,
that wasn't it.
That wasn't it. Yeah.
But I'm doing it on purpose because if I play the actual tune, then
basically.
Yeah,
it's playing in the back of my mind. Like, I just like, yeah. It depends. It just depends. Like, it depends on the context. So, I like, as I tried to explain in the previous conversation about the anti-joke, and uh, manipulating social situations like those, where it's just kind of like, why don't you just ask me what you really want to ask, right? like, so so if the question is, oh, where are you from? I said London, and you really want to ask what, you don't see yourself as English. Quite hot too, you know. But I don't know. I don't know if this is if there's any kind of this nuance anywhere else in the world. Maybe there is.
Of course there is, man.
Quite likely there probably is. But I think in this country, I feel like and I think living in London and being born and raised in London, like, or living born outside of London and then but living in London, it's slightly different. I'm not saying that this is like it's any kind of better or worse, but they're just different experiences, right? And you have a kind of the city is in you, right? You have that kind of feel to it, right? And
everything you know is based on that geography.
And I don't necessarily think it's like something specific about London. Like, if you're really like being honest or realistic, it's just where you're from. It's your home, right? It just so happens that my home isn't some like small village in the UK or some country or like some rural area or some suburb. It is like this huge mega city, right? And there's that thing about it whereby, and I'm sure this might be felt by people in Tokyo and New York or wherever, Paris, but when you talk about London, for me, mentally, there's a massive distinction from London in Britain to like England and everything outside of England, outside of London. It's a huge difference, right? And some of my friends, I don't really fully understand and appreciate this. Like,
appreciate it. There are millions of people in the north of the country who are very disturbed. London is not synonymous with the rest of the country. Well, look, I know you're not saying anything bad, but that separation is something many people feel, and some people are unhappy about either.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to labour the point, it's just like, oh, why don't you move out? The further you move out, the more you can get money. It's just like, but I have no connection to places like Essex and Kent and what have you, or Hertfordshire, right? I don't have any kind of, like, Hertfordshire is slightly different because we're in North London, grew up in North London, so slightly like on the cusp. But I wouldn't want to, like, I don't think I would actually want to live out there. And not to say that they're bad places to live, but I have no connection to it, right? When we came and stepped foot in this area, this part of East London, the Dockland side of East London, and I literally, like, a 30-second walk and you're on the river, right? You're looking at the Thames and you can see the Thames barrier. And then as you turn, you can see Canary Wharf, like literally 10 minutes away, right?
Yeah.
I immediately felt like home. And there was no other place that at that moment that I could ever see myself living. And it's just like proper London. It means that I can get into some of my favorite parts of London, not even like shops or restaurants, but just my favorite parts of London in 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, so like to have that kind of thing. So when people are like, oh, you can move out, and like, oh, like, and I step out of my house and I see a field with a cow in it, like, no.
Welcome to Ireland.
Like, and also it's also like, I've been to loads of places in the UK, right? Like all the big cities in the UK and some places outside of those big cities. Like, and that's not like a humble brag. I'm just trying to make a point. Like, I've seen it, right? But I don't necessarily think it's like a non-London thing, but I do not feel as comfortable, even though there are similarities. Like every high street that you see in Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, they look the same. They look the same, right? And sometimes you think, oh, was that Sheffield or was that, just the same, right? But I don't feel as comfortable. Like, I don't feel as comfortable. I feel very aware of not being English, of being this other. So it's just like, where are you from? I'm from London. Yeah. I'm a British citizen. That's what it says on my passport. So
no. I was just gonna say, I think what you feel. Oh, I don't know. I don't. I think what you feel is the wrong way to start that sentence. Is what you're feeling similar to what I've seen babies go through when their fathers shave? The baby knows the scent of the father. They know the face. Like neurologically, they've mapped this simile into a trust situation. So they trust that person, but the beard is gone. So initially, even though they're happy to see that person, once the rest of the functions of the brain start kicking in, and then the baby's like, well, hold on a second, this don't look like that person that I think I should be trusting. Then they start to cry. There's something about that, I don't remember what movie it was. Was it Lost in Translation? With the guy from Ghostbusters.
Bill Murray, yeah.
Bill Murray, yeah. It was like every Hilton hotel is a Hilton hotel.
Do you know what? It's weird that you mentioned that film, right? I was thinking about it the other day. Like,
I watched that at the cinema, and the cinema had like 10 people. It was massive. It was a massive cinema. And I don't remember much about it, but I remember that it was a very different type of movie, and I'd never watched that kind of movie before. That was the first time I ever watched that type of...
I've seen it. And I saw it like a long time ago. And my thought around it, like when I had the thought the other day, is if I watch this now, right? If I watch this now, yeah, I feel like it's going to be like, I feel like it's going to have a completely different meaning, a completely different like context. Like, for example, like one of the things that people often say about that film is, what does Bill Murray say to Scarlett Johansson at the end, right? Because you don't hear it, right? What does it say, right? And that's become we got some theories, as if everything else up to that point has just kind of like, no, this is the important bit, right? And I just kind of feel like, yeah, to watch this film now, if I was to go and watch it now, I'm gonna have like a completely different reaction and take on it.
Have you seen the movie Words? Okay, I'm not going to say anything about it. But there's an interesting connection, I guess, without giving any spoilers away, to that movie, to Lost in Translation 2. But if you haven't seen it, then I'm not gonna continue this line.
Yes, spoilers.
Yeah. I'm not gonna go into it.
It's about words.
About words, and look, if you can't, being alone and being lonely are not the same things. And in the same way, being among and being of, I don't think are the same thing. They're mutually synonymous, I guess. We use them interchangeably, the same way that doctors use by and with for this Rona jugglings. Well, the government uses by and with for this government Rona jugglings. But if you, I don't know. I was gonna go somewhere else, but I'm still stuck on the Words movie. It's a good movie. You should watch it. I know you won't. Like, you never watched SG1.
The thing, it's the same with books, though, right? When people say, "Oh, you should read this book," I'll say, "Yeah, I will."
Yeah, it takes time.
The thing is, like, for me, when I decide, it's going to sound really like weird, but when I decide to pick up a book or listen to an album or watch a film, I not in like a kind of a conscious way, but you kind of just know that you're ready to receive this thing. Like I've done this before, where I try and start a book just for the sake of starting a book and just don't finish it, right? Like I just not able to focus on it. But then sometimes, like for example, it's going to be quite weird and quite oddly specific, but I had this. I bought this Frida Kahlo book, so I don't know if you know this, but Frida Kahlo is one of my favorite art, like not even painters, right, but just artists, or like, and I find her work fascinating, right? And there's always that thing of trying to find out more. Like, I don't want to read someone else's interpretation of her work, right? I'm not interested in that. I'd rather read her stuff, right? And her stuff are the letters that she used to write to like lovers, her husband, to family and stuff like that. That's her talking about her work without talking about her work. Like, oh, I use this kind of ochre on this bit, like not like that. But I got this. I bought this book, this Frida Kahlo book, and it was basically like a biography type thing, but it also had like letters and stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
And at the point where I decided to buy this book, to read this book, and like read it in like a few days. Like it wasn't like a lot, just like quite a large book, but just could not put it down. Right.
Okay.
It was just the right time to read that book. It was just the right time to kind of thing, and it was reading that. There was also like a couple of other things. Should we have this conversation? Oh, it would be good. Maybe we should have this conversation like offline, but yeah, it was something about it. But yeah, it was just like that. That's like when you're. It's not even like being in the zone. Like you're in the zone afterwards. You don't know you're going to be in the zone until you're in it. But when you've kind of pick up that book, and then like it was the right time for you to receive this information, to receive this story, right? But I know people who just read loads of stuff, right? But yeah, I don't know. Like I need to be able to feel it, right? I need to be able to feel what I'm kind of reading, and I don't know, or watching or what have you. There needs to be a thing around it. Otherwise, you just kind of like it's just like garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. I don't like nothing's retained, right?
Just passive recessive.
But yeah, it was just something about this book, and just kind of like having this insight into this person that lived and has died, but somehow is still kind of living on. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's kind of like a
I don't know.
Bit of a random one, but yeah.
Do you not find that? Okay, so questions for this zone perspective angle, not perspective. If like, so then how do you know if what? See, these are the nuances of our traumas, I believe, as a society, because I find myself in the same situation, right? So I can't, like, I'm very, I don't know, gullible is, I guess, when you believe everything you're told. Are you also gullible if you believe everything you read, or you realize everything you read? Or, does that make sense? I don't know if I'm that type of gullible. Like when I read stuff, I end up thinking about it.
It has a kind of a power. You give it a weight and a power and a form, right?
Yeah.
To try and process and understand, right?
This is true. But I'm much more of an auditory, like an audio learner. So I'd much rather listen to somebody, be able to have that conversation, a dialectic question, which could also be done written down, but I don't understand, for my own personal benefit, for the time being at least, the necessity or the benefit of doing that in that way. Like talking and speaking is a much more natural way of learning in my mind, or for me. I mean, and maybe this is my angle, right? So this is my angle, and and everyone's got their own angles. But before 15, 20, whatever it was, or 16, 50, like the numbers 1, 6, 5, 2, and 7 seem to kind of pop up in my head when I think about this. But that's when they first invented written exams. Nobody ever had to write anything before.
They couldn't.
Well, yeah, they couldn't, but doesn't mean they couldn't do
you
everything
them a
else.
Book and they started to chew in the corner. Those English.
Ah, man, there was this fact I remember reading, like Saint Augustine and Saint Jerome. There's a dialogue between them, and Saint Augustine catches St. Jerome reading a book, the Bible, right? But reading quietly. And St. Augustine's like, I was gobsmacked. He didn't say those words. They didn't speak English, but it was it.
He was baffed, fam.
He was baffed. He was baffed.
As I believe his exact words were, "I'm baffed, fam."
He was like, "What is going on?" Because he couldn't understand, and he said something like, "It bemused me because I was betwixt." That's what it was. I was in the English translation. It's some old Latin word, obviously, but I was betwixt that my brethren was looking at the screen, and I was screen, you know, that's a Freudian juggling.
I mean,
do you see what I'm saying?
The screen of his loom, maybe. Maybe he was looking at the loom screen, and
he was looking at the,
inspired.
you know, like my brethren was looking at the page, and it were as if he were understanding the text. Yeah, I could hear, you know, no sound emanating from his mouth. They had never really experienced, or it wasn't common knowledge. And St. Augustine was like one of the big top, you know, North African not Arab, but North African desert fathers of the Christian church, who spoke about 7 different languages. And
I mean, there were only 7 languages at the time, so
right,
that's quite impressive.
Right. That's he spoke all of them.
Did he speak Yardi by any chance?
I don't know if he spoke Yardi. I don't know.
What are you reading? Book. Go on, carry on.
Like, yeah. No. The whole idea that, you know, even 600 years ago, we were reading out loud, and it wasn't normal and commonplace to be reading silently. It shows how much of a new innovation this technology called writing is for us, and how we don't understand it. We do it, but
that's so funny you say that, right? So,
but we just do it, like, because you're learning Japanese.
Yeah? I was just gonna say, right? So,
right, you just do it.
In our class on Friday, it was this. I'll try and like shorten it, but the previous week we learned basically like this, that, or that over there. Kore, sore, are, right?
Kore, are, yeah.
So kore, sore, are are nouns, right? So you have to use like a topic marker to indicate. So the topic marker in this instance, this example is wa, right? Kore wa, sore wa, are wa. That thing over there, this thing here. For example, kore wa tamango, this, right? This egg that I'm holding. Or if it's over there, sore wa tamango this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we get that. Understood. This week, introduced another form of that called kono, sono, ano, which is not a noun, and you have to pair it with a noun. So kono tamango, what, right? So the topic marker moves after the noun tamango. And before introducing this, our teacher, Kiyoshi, teacher, not sensei, slightly different, said, look, just bear with me. This is simple, but you're going to overcomplicate it, but so just bear with me. Right? 3 of us in the class, right? And she's explaining this thing, and she was like, and she was basically put some stuff on the table, and she was like, kore, no, sore, sono thing, pen, boru pen this, whatever, right? Boru pen, whatever. Or kagi, keys, sore, sono, key, whatever.
Okay.
And like, I got the pattern, right? Yes, kono, noun. Kore is a noun, so it's kore wa. But, you know.
Yep.
I got it, but I asked, but why? And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, but why? Like, why that? And don't get me wrong, there's loads of stuff in English, right? That just doesn't make sense. And I think the thing about English, which is really fascinating, is English, like in Japanese, there are 3 writing systems, right? Hiragana, katakana, and kanji, right? And they all have their historical roots and so forth. But Hiromi-san keeps telling us, Japanese is a very simple language, right? Once you kind of get the basics, like compared to say English, right? And English, although one writing system, but English is made up of French, German, Scandinavian, Latin, and maybe some other stuff in there, right? And there are rules and ways of speaking that just kind of all over the place. But the way I've understood it in my mind is a difference between saying this egg over here or over there is an egg, right? That's how I kind of got it in my mind. But last night, I was having this dream that basically woke me up. I was having this dream that I was talking with a work colleague who, like a Russian dude, but he's also he was learning Japanese. He's worked at the company for ages, but he was learning Japanese as well. I remember him asking me about it on Friday. He's like, "Oh, have you got enough Japanese to be? Do you know enough Japanese?" No, let me start again. He asked, "Oh, are you going to go to Japan?" I was like, "Yeah, the plan is to go next year. It's not a global pandemic." He's like, "Oh, have you got enough time to learn the language to be comfortable over there?" So I was like, "Hi, what's your on this? What I've got to do is ask for the toilet. Sumimasen, toilet wa doko desu ka?" Oh, it's over there. Yeah, I'd be fine. He's like, okay. But yeah, for some reason, he was in my dream, right? And I was, my brain was...
Man crush.
No, it wasn't, it was...
No,
it was,
I'm joking.
It was,
before someone gets angry and says, "Can't you have a woman crush?" Of course you can have a woman crush, but this is just the man crush.
So basically, I think my brain's working overtime to like, okay, this dude's serious about the language, the Japanese thing. So we have to actually rewire some shit to be able to like this to make sense, right?
No, that's good. That's good.
And I was just stuck in this loop with this Kono stuff, Sono stuff, right? Just stuck in the loop. So much so that it woke me up, right? And like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm messaging my mate. I'm just like, I'm just stuck in this loop with this thing, right? And I'm sort of half asleep still, and then like whatever, fall asleep, and then and I'll say this bit, and you might cut this from the recording, but later on, so I must have fallen back to sleep. And I'm telling you, as real as I'm talking to you for a screen right now, right? Mm-hmm. I was in this place. I don't know. I wasn't sure where it was. It wasn't important. But my uncle is next to me, right? Oh, and he's talking to me and he's asking me, like, what's happening? What's going on? And I was talking about the Japanese stuff. And he was fascinated, right? Fascinated. And he's asking loads of questions, like, little nuanced questions.
Yeah.
And a couple of other people there, I think there might have been family members as well. They were like, I don't know, they're sort of like half asking questions as well. Oh, that sounds it. Or not, no, they weren't asking questions. They were saying, oh yeah, like reaffirming. Oh yeah, I've seen that. Oh yeah, that's a thing. And like stuff like, I remember like one of the things he was asking me was about the bowing. And like how much like have you learned about like differences?
What angle? What angle do you bow?
But how far down and certain things, right? And yeah, it was just sort of like, and it was like he was genuinely like, not even just like impressed, but he was like fascinated, and also just kind of like, oh, this is amazing. This is amazing, Daniel. Like, this is great. And he was like, oh, what's your brother? Is your brother doing it as well? I was like, no, it's just kind of me. It's like, it's just still amazing. It's really great. And I was like, oh, like I was kind of like really taken aback by it. And I sort of turned to kind of just sort of to work out where I was. As I turned back, he was gone, and I woke up, and I was just like, yeah, that was, it was like, I'm telling you, it was like, it didn't feel like a dream at all, right? And this is not the first time. This is not the first time where, like when I've dreamed about, like he's been in a dream, and we've had a conversation or what have you, or some kind of thing, right? But this was just kind of like, this is a bit different. I'm gonna cut this bit, by the way. Like, I'm gonna cut this bit out, but it was weird. Like, dude, little details like the shirt and the smells and the sounds, like.
See, look, all of that stuff, like memories and, you know, Donald Hoffman, I go on about him quite a bit. Yeah, he obviously he's got a lot of kind of devil's advocates playing their roles against him, and the guy seems to be quite forthright in his openness to criticism. As far as he's concerned, nothing we know is real. Nothing we know, nothing we know to be true can, by the definition of knowing, be real, because it goes through the filter of this thing called the brain and neurons and consciousness and all this. So when we smell something and remember a place 15 years ago, where does that memory come back to us from? How is it that the reverse also works? When you remember something and sometimes you remember the smell, how can you remember a smell? Like this is a very strange biological function. Like a smell is a real time. Smell is real time, huh? Like I can color, again, sound, all of this stuff is real time, but you can remember someone's voice, but it's not the same as when you remember the smell of a strawberry or you remember the smell of chocolate. Like, so there's something about how, and look, yeah, our noses, we used to be able to use our noses to smell the rain coming over the mountains. That's what this faculty used to, you know, be used for. We still used it to smell flowers, you know, if someone's bought us flowers or whatever. But this idea of what we're meant to be doing with our lives question has just been, has not yet sufficiently answered the rest of the questions. Like, how is it we can have these well, I don't know, some people call them true dreams. Muslims call them true dreams. I think that also, I remember one time, let's keep this stuff because you haven't even edited the last week's video. You're not going to be able to do this one. So let's just put this up as it is. But I'm also going to share something, right? So I can't remember what year it was. I was 17 though. So it must have been like what, 2002, 2003, something? No, 19. I was 16 in 96. So it's about 98, 99. Yeah, 99 when the earthquake happened in Turkey. I'm 17, yeah. Oish. All right, so not a practicing Muslim at the time, nor am I anymore. But after the earthquake, we just had a lockdown, basically, because there's no electricity and the whole country was in tatters. Well, that side of the country anyway, in Turkey. And it wasn't, and even though we were about 500 kilometers away from the area, even like everywhere in Istanbul shook. It was bad. The earthquake in Turkey back then, that one was bad. This one in Izmir, the one recently, I mean, every earthquake is bad, huh? I'm not going to start comparing catastrophes and shit. But anyway, having a conversation with somebody about religion, because at times of calamity, people often do. And I said to this person, I said, why do I need to follow these rules? Why? Sorry, no, I didn't. I said, why do I need to kind of accept this testament that you're saying, right? Why do I need to? And really, now thinking about it, what I was really saying is, why do I need to follow the religion? And it could have been any religion at that point. You know, if I don't steal and I don't covet my neighbor's wife and I don't do this and I don't do that and I follow the commandments, let's say, but I don't make the testament of faith, why is that better? Or why is that more? And she said to me, are you being honest? And I was like, sorry. She was like, are you being serious? You don't do these things. You don't, you know. And I was like, yeah, you know, I follow these 10 commandments, but why do I need to also accept that they were sent to me by somebody? Why, is it not enough that I follow them? Do I need to kowtow to the so-and-so? And then she got a piece of paper and she started to write something down, and I'm kneeling, right, or I'm squatting actually. I'm squatting right beside her. There's no social distancing in that decade, and she wrote down on a scrap of paper 2 lines, and in my head I'm reading out the first line, and I'm a grown man, yeah, a grown man from the mountains, and I'm telling you,
Man. Quick, stop
I
him.
I
You mustn't get to the city. He'll corrupt our
you
children.
must yeah,
He'll
must
corrupt our
catch
children.
it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's good, it's good. The bro, I know what an orgasm feels like. This was beyond an orgasm. I'm just gonna, I talked about nuts last week, so why not?
I mean, that's quite a leap, though. You're talking about first you go from nuts to fondling your nuts. It's very different. Like,
I'm there, crouching down, reading lines off a piece of paper, and I was basically, I had the same euphoria as, and at that time, I didn't really know what that meant.
what are you reading, man? What are you reading?
And then some ratio oscillation happened in my head, and I made a decision. And before she completed the second line of the text, actually, no, she did, but like before I took it seriously, I took up the piece of paper, I scratched it, and I put it in my pocket, right? And I went from like 10 miles high, euphoria, and I'm flying down. I'm like off the ground, blood. This is no joke. I'm so euphoric reading this first line. The moment I scratched the piece of paper away, I sunk, big time sunk. Like I'm talking 6 feet under sunk. Like I'd never felt that lost or I don't even know how to explain it. I do not know how to explain it. And that was the first time I said to myself, you need to stop talking to people about God, blood, because you don't understand. And then 5 years after that, I became a Muslim. About 15 years after that, or 10 years or so after that, I left Islam. This is a whole different topic. But no, I take that back. I didn't leave Islam in the sense that I understood that word. Islam left me. Yeah, that's how it should be said, I think. Because I don't want to be shot and shit for being a what's it called? I know the Arabic word, but I don't know the English word.
Very bad man.
He's a very bad man. What was that? What was
very
that from?
Naughty boy. Like
Yeah.
He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
Yeah. But like and so how can that's some crazy synesthesia, right? And Donald Hoffman goes into synesthesia, and he goes into the fact that we have no idea really, because even the methods we've used to measure our understanding are based on our understanding. Like it's completely circular. And it's difficult to look for answers in an environment that is based on 12,000 years of totalitarian animal enslavement and 200 years of profiteering. Like it's tough when you really want just an answer for yourself, to be, an upright, upstanding Homo sapiens sapien on this wet rock. I can completely understand, especially now, I can completely understand why religions have had the impact that they've had, but it doesn't explain to me why me reading the 2 lines that make somebody a Muslim has such a biological and impactful residual effect, especially when I didn't know what those words meant, right? So like I basically read what's known as the Shahada, which is the testament that, there was only there is no God but one God, or there is no God but the God, and Muhammad is his messenger. So when I'm reading that there is no God but God, I'm just flying. And the moment, like I read the rest of it, and she's writing it in Arabic too. She's, so it's not the Arabic script. She had Latinized, like in Ramoji, yeah? She had Latinized the Arabic, and then I'm just kind of reading out transliteration. I don't even know what this stuff means. Had a crazy effect on me. So much so, for 5 years, I connected the dots of every kind of near-death experience I had. And then 5 years later, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what that meant. But, if I lived in India, it would have meant a whole different thing. If I was one of 5 English people in the room who were reading that at the same time, it would have meant a different thing. If I was one of 5 Black British people in a room, that would have meant a different thing. Like, all of this stuff for us is about trying to, I think at least this is my take on the current situation. We're just trying to find purpose. And before, when there was a challenge to life, the purpose was to stay alive. And we did that by being experts in whatever we did. So much so, now what? And this idea of being experts is still residual. Like you said, there are people who are so good at making barrels, they were called Barrelson. They were so good. Right? They were Coopers or whatever. But like,
Son of a barrel.
Yeah, but all right, listen, for names, yeah, in the Arab world, they used to, it was funky traditions. They would name their slaves, right? Historically, they would name their slaves really noble names, Mountain, unmovable force, and all this jugglings. But they would nickname their children like Donkey, Giraffe, so and so that the child wouldn't develop an ego to think that he's anything more. But then the slave would have some, edification, and that, okay, my master respects me. Like, it's a peculiar, names are weird, man. In that Ishmael book that I recommended, it's only 2 hours, so you could possibly listen to it. Like, just it's not a 7-8 hour audio book. There's a bit in there where there's a gorilla, and a man walks up to the gorilla and he says, "You are not Goliath." And up until that moment, that gorilla had always known that he was Goliath because people come up to his cage and shout Goliath. So the gorilla works out that I must be known as, like, I must be Goliath.
Me, Goliath.
Me. Yeah. I'm Goliath, because he can see that the children are shouting out other names to other animals, and he kind of gets it because he's a gorilla. Yeah? So then the man comes and says, "You're not Goliath." And he's like, "Well, if I'm not Goliath, who is?
Who am me?
No. Goliath?" Because all right, the jokes aside, you bastard. The
Gorilla is my trigger word, by the way. I just got those.
No, that's fine.
I've got loads of gorilla materials. So weird.
You got to listen. The gorilla's sense of self is established by the name that he's been given, right? And then he finds out that name is not his. So the self that has now been established doesn't go anywhere. So the gorilla, instead of saying, "Then who am I?" he says, "Well, then who's Goliath?" Like,
I told you, not you.
Yeah, it's not you. It goes on, but I don't know. It's a mad one, man. I think surnames. That the whole Muk and O thing works. O is your grandfather, and Muk was your father, right? So O'Hara was the grandson of Hara, and Muk was the son of so and so. And there's an idea, at least over here, that the Irish invented this concept of surnames because they never had them before. Nobody had surnames before. I have a friend who's from a village. He's from a village. Everyone's from a village, I guess, in Turkey.
Not me, I'm just north of the river.
Yeah, just north of the river. in the Ottoman Empire, well, after the Ottoman Empire, when the Republic of Turkey was established, they also mandated surnames for people, right? It didn't exist before. And so government representatives went around the whole country naming people. And everybody from this guy's village's surname starts with a B. So it makes me think, was the next one all C? And then the next one's all Ch, because that's a letter in the Turkish alphabet. And was it then D? And then, if so, where are you from, really, blood? Like, where? Do you know what I mean? In where are you from? Yeah, you just. So, if I don't know. We. What is it about people who are so afraid of who they are that they have to zoom everything into themselves instead of being able to zoom out?
I think it's a sense of people being afraid of who they are. I think we make assumptions, right? I think to for someone to know who they truly are is challenging, right? So maybe it's some people who don't even pose the question in the first place. Yeah. Because who we are is forever changing, right? Except also contradictorily, we always revert back to some similar base patterns of behavior.
We do, which is also crazy.
Right. So the only difference, I guess, is when those patterns come into interactions with different things, different.
Well, your patterns are my patterns.
Just in general, right? But like but at the same time, maybe the description or the categorization is just a pattern, but the actual source of that is beyond our comprehension at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So which one do you want to choose is entirely up to you. But I don't know what more to say on that without talking for like another hour.
I know.
I'm really hungry.
So. Yeah. All right.
These eggs are not edible.
These eggs, they're not edible. Anatano tamak.
You're basically saying, what do you think anatono is? What do you think you're saying?
Anatono is that, isn't it? Anatono is there.
You're adding an atar in there somewhere. Anatono.
Anatono what? Something. That is a something.
Tamango.
Kamango. All right. Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata. Sayonara mataraishu.
Hajimemashite.
No, we know each other. We already know each other. Just say sayonara mataraishu. See you forever next week. Roughly the translation. Goodbye forever until next week. Live long and prosper. I'm not even doing it right.
You voiced that.
I never. You know what? I never really got into Star Wars. Peace.
Peace. Catch you later.